Welcome to the WWH show. This is a show that asks a series of why, what, and how questions on topics that have national, regional, and global significance and implications. Today we have such a topic to talk about. Why electing Alison Silverberge as the next mayor of Alexandria is beneficiary to Ethiopians. In this studio I have Alison. She is the vice mayor of Alexandria, running for mayor. She is a strong advocate for social justice, published author, and her third book is coming soon. Alison, this is not your first time, so welcome back.
Thank you.
I remember in 2012 you had an interview with Ababa Galau. That means you reach out to Ethiopians, so we are so much excited that you are here with us to talk about your election as a mayor of Alexandria.
Well, thank you, and tonight Yistalin.
Yistalin,
and I'm Assegid now. Hello.
Okay.
How's that?
I'm for you
Yeah,
coming.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So the
you.
first
Honored
question
to be with you.
Yeah, the first question is, there are many Ethiopians, thousands of Ethiopians in Alexandria. And the first question we want to ask is why Ethiopians in Alexandria should elect you as their mayor?
Well, again, thank you. I'm honored to be with you and to be speaking to your incredible audience. And I did enjoy my interview 3 years ago, and I'm honored to be the vice mayor of Alexandria. I ran last time 3 years ago for the city council, and I won. And by virtue of the fact that I won the most votes, traditionally, historically, the person who gets the most votes becomes the vice mayor. So if the mayor is out or out of town or steps away, I chair the meeting, or I go to an event and do a ribbon cutting or whatever. But it's a great honor, not only to be on the council, but to be the vice mayor. And I want to be the mayor of Alexandria. And I do ask the Ethiopians and all of our Alexandrians, all the citizens of our city, to please consider voting for me. There are three main areas that I have been focused on in this race that I think are key to all the citizens. One, I think we need to pursue thoughtful, appropriate development that fits in and is to scale and will protect our neighborhoods and quality of life in Alexandria. Everything from here on the West End to the Old Town Alexandria, all the neighborhoods in between. We want to protect our neighborhoods. So it's good to have development or a commercial or new buildings, but we want to make sure it fits in to what exists. So, for example, in the historic district, just to give that example, a lot of the buildings are from the 17 and 1800s. So when you're building something new, it would be nice if it fit in my opinion, architecturally, and also the height and the density, the size of it. Here on the West End, the Brack building comes to mind. The Brack building is this massive building that's at 395 and Seminary, and surrounded by pretty low buildings, and it was zoned for something commercial, but not that dense and not that size. Further, it's off the tax rolls, so for the city it will mean a loss of over $60 million over the next 20 years because it's off the tax rolls. So it should have been on the tax rolls in terms of if it had been in another property, it had been leased or rented, if you will. But it's not. It's federal government. It's off the tax rolls. So that was a big mistake. And also the fact that that decision was made in executive session, meaning behind closed doors. There's no vote. There's no accountability. That was done before I was on the council in the last two councils, ago. So that's a concern. So that's another issue that I feel strongly about, that we need to rebuild the people's trust. I believe in transparency, more openness at City Hall. And I think that Ethiopian Americans can appreciate that. We have a democracy here in our country, here in America, that we all treasure. But every community, every city, every state has different levels of government. So it's local, regional, statewide, if you will, and then federal. And here at this local level, we have to do our part to maintain our transparency. And that means fewer executive sessions, meaning fewer meetings behind the closed doors. We want to have accountability, want to have the public's input. So letters to the editor, columns written by the media scrutiny. So with this particular subject, the BRAC building, if you will, there's no vote, no accountability, no film footage of discussion among the colleagues on the council.
So you bring transparency, accountability, and so on to the city council?
Yes, I would bring that to the council, even more so than we have now, and much more than we have now. And this is really important to me. In addition to the debt is a big issue for our city because our debt has grown exponentially over the last 10 years. From 2003 to 2013, it went from $140 million in debt to $530 million in debt. And we did build some important things like our high school, T.C. Williams, and other things, but we have to figure out what's mission critical. That's what I say. So when you and I and all your viewers go to Target, and I go about once a week to Target every 10 days, or to Bed Bath & Beyond, or whatever, to do our shopping, to get things like paper towels, we shop. We make sure that it's a good value. We make sure that it's really needed. If we all bought what we wanted and not just what we needed, we would all have much more debt, if we will. So I think we have to talk about, for my personal life, I ask what's mission critical, and that's what we as a city need to start asking as well.
So I want to clear one thing before we discuss about specific questions that concerns Ethiopians. That is why Ethiopians should elect a Democrat. I want to give you a little bit background on that one. Many Ethiopians, I talked to some activists, and also I have read some commentaries, and people get frustrated, partly because they invested so much for the election of President Obama in 2008 and 2012. But it looks like President Obama gave his back against the suffering of Ethiopians. He never spoke publicly to criticize the government in Ethiopia for being brutal, and also some of his diplomats like Susan Rice and Wendy Sherman, they went out publicly appreciating and praising, showering the leaders and the regime in Ethiopia, regardless of the reports of their own department, State Department. So Ethiopians are feeling like Democrats betrayed them. I know that you may not favor the regime, you may not involve at the national level to favor the regime, but I just want to know why Ethiopians should elect a Democrat, and what's your personal take on the remarks of these diplomats that completely disregarded the reports of the State Department?
Well, that's a good question. I am concerned about what you're sharing. When we spoke before and today what we're discussing, I'm not personally familiar with what Ms. Rice or Ms. Sherman said, or what the president has stated. I actually majored in international relations and history in college, but my area of focus, frankly, was I was really a Russian studies major, and also focused on Western Europe as well, and European theater. I have friends who spent time in the Peace Corps in different countries in Africa, and I would love to go to see the continent and visit different countries, including Ethiopia. I just haven't had the opportunity, really, to do that yet. So I wouldn't. It hasn't been my area of focus, but as a humanitarian that I am, as someone who lives in the world and believes in social change and social justice, if I can only speak for myself. I don't speak for the Democratic Party. I don't speak for the president. I do support the president. And I don't speak for the State Department. The State Department, they have their experts, and I assume they have their reasons. But speaking for myself only, I certainly don't want brutality anywhere in the world. I want democracies to flourish, and it doesn't have to mirror our democracy here in the United States. It could be their own version of democracy, what works. I mean, that's the beauty of democracy. It's what works for different lands and different peoples and different traditions and different cultures. If there are things going on in Ethiopia that are causing pain to the people, that concerns me. I want to know about that, just as a person interested in international relations throughout the world. I'm personally unfamiliar. I admit this to your community and to you. I think I told you even before that I'm just personally not as familiar with what specifically has been said. I think that this president, since 2008, coming into office, has shown great courage, facing tremendous obstacles and hurdles. The war in the Persian Gulf, of course, that he inherited, that he opposed originally as a senator, I think justifiably. Then the war in Afghanistan, which he promised he would bring to a close, which he has pretty much done what he said he would do. We have to continue to have a presence in these lands to help them rebuild their nations. But we're not a country that comes in and takes over. We're a country, after World War II, for example, that helped Germany rebuild itself, helped Japan. That's never been heard of in the history of the world. Usually when you have a war, of course we didn't start World War II, but we were part of the Allies that won World War II, but the Allies did not take over and stay. We just helped the Germans and the Japanese rebuild their countries, and I think that is a testament to our great country here that I admire so much. And he also inherited the worst recession since the Great Depression. The Great Depression in the 1930s here in the United States was unbelievable. 1 in 4 Americans were unemployed for years. There was grave poverty, and plus the Dust Bowl, where the farms throughout the country were just dust. People were starving. It was a horrible situation that President Roosevelt faced, in addition to the war. And then here comes President Obama, and the Great Recession started just as he took office, just as he was getting elected. Millions of Americans losing their jobs, losing their homes, finding themselves going from middle class or upper middle class into going to food banks and going to free health clinics. So he faced hurdles at home and hurdles abroad. And there were people who didn't want President Obama to intervene with Detroit and our auto industry, but he said we should, and he did, and I think that was the right call. And he helped Detroit, and now it's stronger than ever. So
I think, the Obama administration has done so many great things.
Yeah, job creation, yes, and getting the housing market back.
Yeah. But I'm pointing out that the Ethiopians' frustration, and I want you to clarify that the frustration that Ethiopian has against Obama's administration in terms of pushing the government in Ethiopia to become democratic. I don't want that to reflect on you, because you have to clarify to the audience
that's that federal issue.
Yeah, federal issue,
and
national issue.
I'm a city.
As a city level.
Right.
So that, because I hear some people in blankets saying that I don't
ever want to help.
help or support or vote for a Democrat. I heard that. I read some commentaries. So since you are a Democrat...
But I am concerned about human rights everywhere. And I, for a long time, even in college, for example, a lot of us got together and marched. I was part of the organizing group that marched against apartheid. There was a big anti-apartheid movement in this country, and I'm proud of the work that we did as part of that, because South Africa, we wanted to divest, really, and really it was the divesting that led, if you will, to in many ways to apartheid being eradicated there in South Africa. And I'm a huge fan of Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, and as well as Gandhi and Dr. King. And these are, some of. I'm grateful that Desmond Tutu is still alive, but all of these leaders have stood for, and Desmond Tutu continues to stand for, human rights and doing the right thing and democracy. I am a big believer in what Dr. King and Gandhi professed, which was this, civil disobedience, and that's what we did with the apartheid movement, the anti-apartheid movement, where we came together from all areas of the city of Washington, D.C., and all the colleges. And I was president of the College Democrats on campus at American University. So all the presidents of all the college Democrats throughout the region got together, and it was 1983, I believe, when we did that. Maybe it was 84. I think it was spring 84. It was right before I graduated from college. But I think anything is possible. And change is possible. And change does happen. Look at India. Look at what Gandhi achieved. And I think we have to study the history of the world. And again, I'm not as familiar with what is going on the ground there in Ethiopia right now, in the specifics of it. That's just, it hasn't been my area of focus. But I would say to the people who live here and around the world, and the Ethiopian Americans who live here, and the Ethiopians back home in Ethiopia, all of us, even the elected leadership there, everything should be fair and square. Everything should be fair and square in terms of the elections. We can monitor the elections. We have ways of doing that. We send people out into the world to help that. It's one person, one vote. And if Afghanistan, if they can have an election, if the Iraqis can put their lives on the line to go vote, we need people to know that their voices can be heard and that it's legitimate. And there can't be any toleration for corruption. Not only there, but also here in our country. People can let me know how they feel about an issue, but just because, everyone has to know that a person has integrity, that they cannot be bought. And I just think that it's so important. The public trust can never be broken. And once that is broken, it's just like a mirror. Once it's shattered, and those of us who are lucky enough to be elected to serve, everything has to be transparent and open. And so every dollar, for example, that comes in is listed in a filing. Every dollar that I spend money on, if I have a sticker made, it says lapel stickers, $50, or it won't say $50, it'll say $52.35. It's right down to the penny that we list things. And that's what everyone's supposed to do. If I buy stamps for the campaign because we have to mail out thank you notes, or we want to mail out thank you notes, and then it's like $13.82, right down to the penny, it's listed as an expense. If you give me, for example, $10, it's listed. We don't, anything under $100, well, every penny is listed on my campaign, and that's the way it is for everyone, or it's supposed to be, and that's the way it should be in Ethiopia. But every vote should count. You should have people monitoring every precinct. So if somebody sticks a card in and with a vote, then that is it goes into a special box. It's locked. It cannot be penetrated.
Well, the Ethiopian election is not observed by international observers.
Well, then it needs to be
a fake election. That's why Ethiopians are frustrated by remarks by Wendy Sherman, for example, saying that Ethiopia is a democracy and election is getting better and better, which is totally against what's going on the ground. So I understand that you may not align yourself with what's going on nationally, which favors the regime in Ethiopia. That's why we wanted to ask your
and again, I just don't know. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to clarify that what you do here for Alexandria residents is very important, Ethiopians in Alexandria, and they should not be biased because they are angered by other Democrats.
Right. So the federal government is just completely separate, in terms of international positions or positions that we take with regard to other countries. And I respect the president and the office of the president and the State Department, and they figure out their positions. And we do not, as the City of Alexandria, necessarily weigh in. Now, we could take a position. We could hear, maybe the council would discuss an issue with regard to the tragedy, let's say, in Nepal, the recent tragedy of the earthquake, or the tsunami that hit years ago in Southeast Asia or in Asia. And it's just, there might be a statement or a resolution, but in my heart and in this, I think that our country does stand for human rights. It has for generations, and I believe in the generations to come. We have to continue to stand for justice and human rights and people's dignity. That's why we have the United Nations. I'm a believer that everyone coming to that table, if the elections are not fair in Ethiopia, and I have no personal experience. Obviously, I've said that. I have no experience. But if that's what you're saying, if that's the case, then there are organizations, Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter, and others have been deeply involved in.
This year we don't have. In the past, they used to monitor European Union, Jimmy Carter, and so on. But these days, because a party winning 99.6, depriving even the United States Embassy in Addis Ababa to observe elections in the rural areas. For that matter, European Union withdrew because they say that we suggested some implementations, and the Ethiopian government rejected all the suggestions after 2010 election, for which the Ethiopian government won 99.6% of the parliament. So they said there's no point for us to go there and observe. So it's unfair. What's saddening is, as you said, America is a land that values freedom, justice, equality, democracy, individual dignity, opportunity. This is a great land. That's why people are flocking from around the world, coming here and hearing, top diplomats coming out publicly, speaking against what's going on the ground, which is against the values of the United States. Because these officials, they should have condemned what's going on, because people are killed, there are extrajudicial killings, there are arbitrary arrests, there are harassments, torture, killing. While these are evident in the writings, in the reports of the State Department itself, why the officials? They can say, silent. They can keep silent. They don't need to speak out publicly. But going out, showering the regime as it is Democrat, it's ridiculous for the whole world watching, knowing the government, one of the dictatorial regimes in the world.
Well, from my personal perspective, I don't speak for anyone but myself, of course. I just hope that really a moral compass is what guides us, not just with regard to international relations, but with regard to our policies here locally in terms of how we help others and publicly serve or help the public good. And but a moral compass is critical. It's not just our economic interests. We also need to take into account our moral compass. There are the young girl, incredibly courageous, who was shot in Pakistan and who has spoken. And anyway, she was shot by the Taliban in Pakistan. And she's been incredibly courageous. And she's a hero to millions of people around the world. Yeah. And she spoke before the UN and showed great courage, and is a great spokesperson for insisting that we talk about human rights and the people's dignity, that girls and women's rights in terms of education, and I firmly believe in that, of course.
By the way, the problem with the current administration is that Ethiopia is the key ally against terrorism in the Horn of Africa. So they are kind of paying back the regime because the regime is supporting and helping the anti-terrorism efforts of the United States in the Horn of Africa. Mm-hmm. It's understandable, but coming out saying something that's really not on the ground, they may support the government, in terms of money and so on, even if it is not fair, but coming out to speak against the truth, against the values of the United States, that's embarrassing for many Americans who value justice, democracy, and freedom. That's why Washington Post and other international organizations like Freedom House came out and condemned the praises of Wendy Sherman.
Okay.
Anyways,
I do know, and I can't speak to what Ms. Sherman or Ms. Rice said because I haven't personally heard it or read it. But in terms of the Horn of Africa, certainly it's public knowledge that the war on terror has infiltrated a great deal of the continent. So, but I think our moral compass needs to guide us as well. And I hope that things improve in your homeland, but this is your homeland too.
Yeah, the first people to fight this injustice is Ethiopians. Why I mention this is because it looks like it's against the grain of the United States, especially the recent remarks of Wendy Sherman. I brought that because people should differentiate you from the remarks of other Democrats officials, so that they should understand that what you do at the city level is very important to Ethiopians, and you care about Ethiopians. That's why they should elect you, even if they are offended by other Democrat officials.
Well, and I'm not going to agree on every issue with necessarily with any president. That's part of our country we can agree to disagree, but in terms of our values, I think that you can understand my values that I do stand for social justice and human rights and diplomacy, but also in terms of a fair judiciary, an impartial judiciary, so that if you go to a judge and you want justice, that you should be able to seek justice. It should not, and even in this country and in other countries throughout the world, you want to make sure that things are an even playing field. And I don't think that ever necessarily changes. We have to continue to be vigilant about that in every country, including this country. We want to have fairness, and so that means appointing or electing fair judges. But the law in this land, the scales of justice are supposed to be even, and I believe that we must continue to insist upon that. People have to know that they have rights too. No one in this country is above the law. I firmly believe, and I'm sure you do, believe in the rule of law, and meaning that, and we know this, that the President Nixon was, the House of Representatives voted to impeach him, so he resigned rather than go through all that. But that vote happened, and the fact is it really demonstrated to the world that no one is above the law. And what he was doing was, at the time, regardless of party affiliation, you don't undermine justice in this country. And what he or his team had been doing, and then the cover-up, and I don't need to go into all of that, but the point is that it's really critical. No one is above the law. Rule of law is everything. Justice, fairness, and our values, moral compass. So like I said at the beginning, I don't really know all the specifics of what's been going on, but I am sensitive to what you've been saying, and I'd like to learn more about these specifics. But if there are things that are going on with the government of Ethiopia that need to be addressed, then the State Department, I think, then the Washington Post, was correct in its assessment of that. Change is possible.
I think you responded it very well, that you as a mayor at Alexandria City, if you are elected as a mayor, you focus on those issues that affect Ethiopians,
all the people
and other immigrants and other races.
Yeah, I'm very sensitive to issues related to immigrant families and immigrants, because my grandmother was first-generation American. She came here as a little girl, as a toddler, really. So my mother was technically first-generation American, and I'm very sensitive to the immigrant story. Our country is stronger for it. We have that at the Statue of Liberty. There's that famous phrase that we embrace all the huddled masses. We welcome the huddled masses. Our country is the great melting pot of the world. Everyone in this country is from somewhere else in the world, except for the Native American, or Indians, really. Native Americans, they are the Native Americans. That's it. The Native Americans, the Cherokee, the Apache, I could go on and on. All the Native American tribes, they are the original Americans. The rest of us came here as immigrants. And whether you came here in 1750 or came here in 2015, we're all immigrants except for the Native Americans. And if anyone tells you anything differently, they're not telling you the full truth. And so no one is better than anyone else in this country. Anyone who's born in this country it's freedom of choice. You can become a teacher, you can become a police officer, a doctor, a lawyer, a business person, a journalist, or President Obama's case, he ran for president. That's amazing, because it's not as if he came from a connected family, if you will. He got his education. I believe that education is everything. So Ethiopian Americans who live in Alexandria, I'm sure they want what I want, which is they want the schools to be great so that our kids all have an excellent education and an excellent academic career throughout their lives and can realize their potential. We want good health care. We want good public libraries. We want our roads to be in good shape. We've had a difficult year with our roads because of the winter, but we're getting those fixed. But our children are the future. We have to invest in them. And not just invest in them at school. Invest in them after school. After-school programs, tutoring, mentoring. I've tutored, I've taught. I'm proud of that, and I loved being involved with the students and following them as they reached out to me through the years. And I've been very blessed by the teachers that I've had in my life, and I'm still very close to many of them. And so I've taught, I tutored 2 fourth graders as a volunteer in Alexandria. I mentored kids in Anacostia at the height of the crack wars, Anacostia being in southeast DC. And I taught kids, students, undergrad and graduate students at American University for 3.5 years.
By the way, when is the election day?
June 9th, Tuesday, June 9th. And thank you for asking that. So if a person is registered to vote in the city of Alexandria, and there's still time to register, it's easy to do. It takes no time at all. You could do it at the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicle. When you get your driver's license, or you don't even have to go there for your driver's license. You can just go there and register. And there are other places to register at City Hall in Old Town Alexandria on King Street. Right across the street from City Hall, next to Gadsby's Tavern, is a place where you can register at 132 North Royal Street. 132 North Royal Street is the elections office, electoral board office. And absentee voting has already began weeks ago. And a person, if they think they might be out of town that day, or they have appointments and they won't be able to vote on June 9th, they can vote now.
So let's talk about why...
And every vote will matter.
Yeah, it matters.
And just remind you that President John F. Kennedy, when he ran for president, he won by very few votes. I think it was definitely less than 1% of the vote. Wow. Imagine millions of Americans voted, and it came down to less than 1%. And actually, when when President Bush won in 2000, that was a very close vote as well. And here in Alexandria, I have every belief that it will be close.
So it's very important for Ethiopians to go out and vote. So would you give us some of the reasons why all Ethiopians who are eligible to go out and vote, to go out election day and vote?
Why they're eligible or why they're...
Eligible. I mean, those people who are...
legitimate. So if they're citizens and they're residents of the city of Alexandria, they just have to register. And it's really important to vote. I mean, millions of people have fought for my right and your right and everyone's right to vote. We live in a democracy. Elections matter. The local elections, everyone thinks it's the president and the Congress. Those votes do matter tremendously, but the local elections matter just as much because we set, in terms of how we work with our school board and the schools and our libraries and our healthcare system and, like I said, the roads. But there's a whole gamut. There's a wide range of issues that affect our city in terms of where things are built, how the parks look, our open space, our parks, our taxes, how much we pay in order to live here. All of that is critical. And we just voted on putting in a new metro stop the other day. That's a tremendous investment in our infrastructure. The next council is going to have to take on things that other councils have been just kicking the can down the road, and we're going to have to tackle it. You can always count on me to be a strong advocate for education, our libraries, our parks, our quality of life, and protecting our neighborhoods. Certainly our healthcare system. I'm a big believer in public health. But I believe that anything is possible. So if there's a problem, we need to come together as a community, and I'm very good at listening to the people. Everyone knows that about me, that when people come to City Hall and speak to us, I'm very committed to hearing what they have to say. I certainly have integrity, and I've been listening to the residents. Once a month I have a coffee where anyone can come and we sit in a circle and discuss whatever issues are on their minds, and we take notes and we follow up with people on the staff of the City Hall. So it's a great honor to serve. I believe in public service, and when I worked on the Hill for Senator Lloyd Bentsen of Texas. He'd been on the staff. He'd been a senator and a member of Congress for many years, and I was on staff for 2 years. And when I was in college at American University, I had the great honor of interning for Senator Ted Kennedy on the Hill. So you can imagine what an honor that was.
So let's talk about some of the benefits Ethiopian may gain if you are elected. So what are some of the benefits vulnerable Ethiopians may benefit if you are elected?
Well, I've been a long-time advocate for the most vulnerable in our city and in the country. I wrote a book, in fact, about people who step up to help the most vulnerable. And job creation and affordable housing or workforce housing are key elements of helping folks. Certainly education is totally key, but job creation, helping people make that connection to job opportunities. I was the chair of the Economic Opportunities Commission for the city for 2 or 3 years. I was on that commission a total of 8 years. And when I became the chair, I suggested to everyone, and everyone agreed wholeheartedly, that we should focus primarily on job creation and affordable housing. So you can imagine in my heart
when you become a mayor. So what kind of plans do you have if you are elected to, as you say, to improve the living condition and also to improve job opportunities, housing, education, and so on? Some of your plans.
Right. Well, we need to, first of all, make it easier for those who have jobs and those who want jobs to connect with each other. We do have JobLink, but I think we need to take a hard look at how to make that even better. We need to be very proactive. If people want to work, I mean, if someone wants to work and can't find a job, that's such a shame and such a loss of human resources and human potential. The dignity that comes with having a job is so tremendous and important. It's not just important to have that paycheck, it's important for that dignity, and that people find out that they can make a difference. And so I really want, if someone would like a role, a job, then that we connect them. We bring in more businesses. We encourage more entrepreneurship. There was actually an Ethiopian American restaurant opened on Pickett Street, or I forget what, but I was there for the ribbon cutting. It was very exciting, and I hope that
I live in Maryland, so I don't know what's going on around.
The food was delicious. So for the opening, and it was family owned and operated, and I think that's the American dream. It's not just the American dream, although we call it that. It's really the human dream. That you should be able to start a business and run a business. We have a small business administration entity in the city to help people launch a business, help them learn how to do it, and all that. They should be able to access that at any time. I'm happy to put people in touch with that. Part of being a mayor is connecting people, making introductions, letting people know that there are opportunities. If someone's interested in if they're good with landscaping, let's say, or they want to learn about it, then we should be able to connect them with someone who's running that kind of business, and perhaps over time they decide that they want to run their own landscaping business. In terms of affordable housing and workforce housing, this is an issue throughout the country, not just Alexandria. But in Alexandria alone, what concerns me is that, first of all, of our city staff, only 11% of people who work for the city can afford or choose to spend their money to afford to live in the city. Now, some of them choose to live, in Maryland or something, or Woodbridge, and that's fine. That's freedom of choice. But if they want to live in the city of Alexandria, a lot of them cannot afford it because the median price of a home here is over $500,000. So I got lucky because I bought here, I don't know, almost 15 years ago, and prices were not as expensive. But for me, it was expensive.
That time.
At that time, right. But there was the first-time home buyer. You can just put down 3%, and so 3% of X is doable. But today, some people are being required to put down 20% because of what happened in the 2008 downturn. But I would encourage the first-time home buyer opportunity that is through the Commonwealth of Virginia. There are other interest rates are really low right now, definitely below 5%, maybe below 4 or 3% even, and depending upon the deal. And there were times when I was a child when interest rates were above 15%. So it was very difficult for American families then.
So you expect some changes in this area if you are elected as
Well,
a
that's a
mayor?
federal issue, but I would encourage people in terms of workforce and affordable housing, getting back to that. In the city from 2003 to 2013, the city went from 18,000 market rate affordable housing units, 18,000 affordable housing units, meaning apartments, to well under 5,000. So we lost 13,000, and we're about to lose more. So let's just say it's 5,000 now. We add when we can, and it's hard because the city is strapped financially, really strapped. But we have to work with nonprofit developers to come in and do what they can. I think we need to have a diversified economic base in the community so that people who are working in different level jobs can afford to live in the city. The city cannot do it all, and I'm not going to say it can, but we can do better. So as mayor, I would want to focus on that at least to do better.
How many people are running for mayor?
3.
3.
I'm one of 3.
How are the policies of your opponents different than yours?
Well, I can't speak for them. I don't want to speak for them.
How your
But my record is that I've been a staunch, consistent advocate for affordable and workforce housing. And I've been working in this arena and with regard to job creation and working for the most vulnerable for over 25 years, in addition to what I did before the 25 years in terms of interning for Senator Kennedy and working with nonprofits and writing this book about helping the most vulnerable. I have a 25-year record or more of public service because I've been doing it since college, really. So, but even after college, once I became a professional, that's when I started counting the 25 years. I don't count the college necessarily.
Now this is an election season. What do you plan to involve Ethiopians, to engage Ethiopians in the Alexandria city, to involve and increase their roles in the life of the city if you are elected?
Well, first of all, we have almost 100 boards and commissions in the city, and people volunteer to serve on them, and they apply, and then they get elected, and the council appoints them. And I would encourage folks to look at the list and see what's of interest. Some are focused on children or youth, some are focused on the elderly, and people who know me know that I'm I'm passionate about the elderly as well, as obviously I've already talked about my passion for education and children, but I'm also very focused on making sure that we do what we can for our seniors and that they can age in place. And I'm deeply devoted to them as well. So joining boards and commissions, and there's a whole range of them. There's one on employment, there's one on housing, there's one on seniors and children and youth, and there's one on landscaping or what we call beautification. Whatever someone's interested in, and if there's an opening, the person can apply. And it takes 5-10 minutes to fill out an application, and you fill it out and you can apply, and then you reach out to the council members and ask them to vote for you. But there are also transportation commissions, planning commission. It just runs it's a wide range. So that's first of all. Come to my monthly coffees.
When are they?
They're usually on a Saturday morning once a month, and it's on my website, AlisonSilverberge.com, and hopefully you'll put that on the screen. Oh, yeah, sure. www.AlisonSilverberge.com. That's ALLISON, S as in Sam, IL, B as in boy, ER, B as in boy, ERG. So it's AlisonSilverberge.com, and it's always listed there. During the campaign, I did it every month up until last month and this month.
I think it's very creative because people will have access to you. Yeah,
I'm very approachable.
They can talk to you, share their concerns, and also get some information and so on. So that's creative, and I hope that Ethiopians in the Alexandria city may tap into that.
Yeah, sure, that'd be great. Yeah. And also come to the public hearings once a month. The city council has a public hearing, and anyone can come speak. You don't have to have an appointment. You just fill out a piece of paper when you get to City Hall, and you can speak for up to 3 minutes about any subject that's concerning. And I think that's a fabulous way. But in addition to that, I'm very approachable and very accessible. So I want to know what's going on. Some folks in the city reached out to me about a street called Russell Road. I don't know if you know Russell Road.
No, I live in
Maryland.
So
well, that's all right. So Maryland's beautiful. So, but in Alexandria, some of my best friends live in Maryland. So but there's a street called Russell Road in Alexandria, and there's a part of it where people were speeding. So apparently, since 2001, the neighborhood around there, they were complaining to City Hall and the mayor, the city council, for years, since 2001, 15 years. Wow. And they weren't getting much more than a Band-Aid here and there, or really nothing, apparently. And I didn't know any of this. So I got elected in November 2012. I took office in January 2013. On Halloween night, one of the great events of the year for even people my age and your age, but also especially for the children, to go trick-or-treating. It's a great American holiday. It's hilarious, all the costumes. And it's all about candy, And so a child was crossing the street on Russell Road with his family and was hit by a car. And all these neighbors witnessed it. They didn't know this child. He had walked over from another neighborhood with his family, as happens often. You trick-or-treat in all kinds of neighborhoods. All you do is knock on somebody's door and get candy, and you go to the next door. And so he's crossing the street with his family, and he and a cousin were hit by a car. And the neighbors saw it, on Russell Road, and they chased after the car. It was a pizza delivery person. And they stopped the driver from driving off and kept him there until the police came. And they called 911 for the child and the cousin and his cousin. And they didn't know if the child would live. He was so badly injured. He was 7 at the time. He's 9 now, but he's had 3 surgeries. His name is Hugo, and he broke his leg, and he's still limping a little bit, but he's doing much better. But he had 3 surgeries because really his kidney, or his kidneys, I'm not sure which. And it is sad, but he survived. But that neighborhood reached out to the council and the mayor, and in particular one of my colleagues, and they weren't getting nowhere in November 2013. And then they reached out to me And they didn't mention that this is where the child had been hit. They just mentioned that it was a very dangerous stretch of road. And I said, well, I'd like to come see it if that's possible. And I brought the director of transportation out with me and one of his top staff. And we stood there in the freezing cold. By now it's early December by the time I learned of this and was back in town from Thanksgiving. And I saw the cars speeding. It was so obvious. And I said, this is dangerous. You're supposed to be going 25 miles an hour. And so I turned to the director of transportation at the time, Rich Bear, and I said, we have to fix this now. I don't want any more children getting hurt like this. And by then I'd heard about that this was where the child had been hit. And anyway, so now we have speed tables. We have a thing that shows you how fast you're going. We have speed tables or these speed bumps. We have more signs that say slow down, children at play or something. We have the police ticketing now and then there. In fact, they did go out. I called the police and asked them if they would please check. And the police were ticketing, and they said over half the cars that are on that road that are getting ticketed, well over half were from Maryland or D.C., so they were cutting through, and they were just speeding. And I said, I don't know where they're from, and it doesn't matter. If they're on our streets, they need to abide by the existing traffic laws. And if the speed limit says 25, then we need to make sure that people, I want to protect our neighborhoods. And I don't want those children being at risk all the time, or the adults. So people have slowed down. So change is possible, but the Ethiopian Americans who live in the community need to, and all the citizens of the city, regardless, let us know if there's a problem. But apparently these neighbors were letting city council and the mayor know since '01, and no one did anything. And it took this near tragedy to happen. And even after that tragedy, no one responded to their needs. So by the time they got to me, they were very frustrated and upset, understandably so. Yeah. So I ask for the input. I welcome the people's input because I'm going to listen, because you all know what's going on. I can't monitor every street of the city.
So this is your competitive advantage against other people who are running for mayor.
I'm very responsive.
So the question then is, how can Ethiopians in Alexandria, especially activists, may help you get elected? Well,
first of all, everyone can be active. Everyone can go out and they can, if they get my email about my campaign, they can forward that email to all their lists. They can call their family and friends and their neighbors. They could go door to door, knock on the door, and we have grip cards that describe my campaign and my platform, and they can put it in people's, share it with people at events. Word of mouth is huge. My signs are everywhere. If people need a yard sign, they can put a yard sign in their front yard. We have bumper stickers. They can put a bumper sticker on their car. The most important thing is to vote. But if each person who's going to vote for me told 3 or 10 people, 10 people, everybody knows 10 people, 10 people, please go vote for Alison Silverberge for mayor. June 9th, Tuesday, June 9th, is the election day, but absentee voting, like I said, has already begun. And if we need to help you find out what your precinct is, we're happy to do that. And it's very exciting to vote. It is. And I remember when I turned 18, and it's a great rite of passage. And when people go vote, I used to go with my mom and dad to vote. And people would say, "Why are you taking the kids?" And my mom and dad would say, "Because we want them to vote. We want them to see how important it is to vote. That it's a great right. It's not. It's a privilege to vote, and but every American has that right to vote. But if you don't vote, you don't have any say. So you really don't even have any right to complain about things, because if you didn't vote,
using your power.
Yeah, you didn't even use your power. You had the vote, and the power of a vote is huge. It's huge.
So thank you very much for coming. And
well,
do you have anything to say?
If I could just mention one more thing, I am honored to be endorsed by former mayor and former state senator Patsy Ticer. Wow. She is amazing. She's now 80 years old. She's lived in Alexandria for most of her life, and her husband was on the city council, and then she ran for city council 15 years later after he served, and then she ran for mayor and served. She was elected twice, and then she went to the state senate. So she was in the state legislature for almost 20 years. I don't know if it was exactly 20, but maybe it was 17 years. I'm not sure exactly. But Patsy Ticer, truly, I believe, the most beloved, in my opinion, probably the most beloved Alexandrian, the most beloved person in our city, and she endorsed me. Yeah,
that's a great. And also Ethiopians in Alexandria, some activists, they contacted me. They, for that matter, connected me with you. So they endorsed you. They wanted you to be elected because they know that you care about issues of Ethiopians, immigrants, and also other residents of Alexandria. So we hope that you're going to be elected and become a mayor of Alexandria. Very beautiful, old, and ancient city.
Yes. It is. I'm honored to live here and to serve it, and I do ask for every vote, and I really appreciate being here with you.
Thank you.
I'm honored to have been with you, Assegid, and certainly አመሰግናለሁ.
እኔም አመሰግናለሁ. Me too.
Wow, honored.
For coming.
Honored.
And you're very busy, but you came out here to reach out to Ethiopians in Alexandria.
Well, I care.
Yeah, you
and
care.
I do care.
And
I want to know how I can be of help.
Yeah, we really appreciate that for you to reach out and tell Ethiopians how you may serve them if you are elected as a mayor of Alexandria.
Right, and I care about all the people of Alexandria. I care about people everywhere, and I think that we have to do better for treat people for everyone.
For the inhabitants of Alexandria.
Absolutely.
Also, on behalf of ISAT and our viewers, thank you very much, and I look forward to have another discussion in the future. Who knows? Maybe you may run for a president. Who knows? So I would love to invite you one more time.
I appreciate it. Anytime. Yeah. Let me know. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Come, I'd love to. Let me know. Give me a call.
Sure.
I would love it.
We'll do that. Dear viewers, I hope that you have been convinced by Alison that she is the best to be the mayor of Alexandria. So go out, use your power, register, and vote, most importantly. Until I see you with another program, have a wonderful time. Thank you very much for watching.